Let's begin with prayer. Voice of wisdom, open our ears to the waves of your calling. Open our hearts to the fire of your presence. Open our eyes to the paths that you lay before us, even when we don't feel ready to follow. As we enter these ancient words, may we find ourselves in the story, in every casting of the nets, in every moment of failure, and every tender call to try again. May we listen for your voice. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. I don't like to read. I never have. Now, that's not to say that I've never gotten caught up in a good book, but I've always found it more of a chore than fun. My mind wanders, I get uncomfortable, I get distracted by the dog, and before I know it, I realize that I have no idea what's happened for the last 2 pages. These days, I have coping mechanisms. Audiobooks often help. A good storytelling style can really pull me in, but as a kid, all I really knew was, I don't like to read. Now, I had plenty of friends who were comic book kids. They loved talking about their favorite heroes, their favorite issues, and it's still fun to listen to fans light up about the adventures of these characters. But it never occurred to me to try reading them for myself. I didn't like to read. What I did love was watching comic book shows and movies. I started with reruns of Superman on Nick at Night, Wonder Woman, The Incredible Hulk, and late-night TV showings of Howard the Duck were always available on early 90s cable. By the time Spider-Man and X-Men hit in the late 90s, I was all in. And in 2008, when Kevin Feige began building the Marvel Cinematic Universe, bringing comic book-style world building to the big screen, I was hooked. This was storytelling that I could live inside. One summer in seminary, I even convinced my advisor to let me design a directed study that was basically watch every Marvel movie and TV show available at the time and create a Sunday school series based on the theological themes of the MCU. It was a perfect class for a mid-COVID summer semester. But of course, the MCU keeps growing and getting messier, gets outdated really quickly. But that love of the MCU stays alive. It's been a source of fun and connection for Jenny and me. Recently, we've been all the talk about the newest movie in the franchise, the Thunderbolts. Now, the Thunderbolts isn't your typical superhero team-up. These aren't gods or wizards or golden boys who could do this all day. These are the ones who've messed up. Former villains, anti-heroes, disposable delinquents. They're broken people, banded together. Not to be great, but to do good. They don't always trust themselves, but they have to learn to trust each other. They show up anyway. And then there's Bob. Bob's kind of a mystery. No one really knows why he's there, not even Bob. He wasn't invited. At least not that he remembers. He just showed up. Simon Peter, he wasn't trying to change the world either. He was just trying to fish, feed his family, maybe have enough to sell or trade. His brother Andrew was the one caught up in all that John the Baptist stuff. And on that day by the water, Simon Peter was exhausted. empty-handed, ready to go home. He didn't come to meet Jesus. He just happened to be there. And Jesus stepped into his boat. But there's a bigger problem in the Thunderbolts. Not just a team of misfits trying to work together. The person who brought them all together, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, or just Val, she has her own agenda. She's obviously assembling a team of mercenaries, and her motives, they're murky. The mission doesn't quite add up. The rules keep changing, and it becomes clear Val doesn't want them to be better. She wants them to be useful. There's something deeply wrong in the world they've been pulled into. And something dark, something ancient is spreading fast. Just beneath the surface, something worse is building. Not just chaos, not just corruption, but despair. Not a villain with a costume, but a force. Something that feeds on shame, that spreads like rot beneath the surface. Maybe that's what Peter was feeling when he fell to his knees in that boat. Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man. He couldn't even imagine being near holiness, let alone participating in it. He didn't even believe Jesus when he told him to put his nets in the water. But Jesus doesn't shame him. Jesus doesn't argue. He simply invites. And just like that, Peter's in. All in. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't ask for a training manual. He just goes. He's the first to name Jesus as the Messiah. He's the one who gets out of the boat and walks on water until he sinks. He's the one who says, I'll never deny you, even though he will. He's the one who jumps out of the boat and swims to shore when he sees Jesus is there. Because Peter always throws himself toward the light, even when he doesn't know how to hold it. And that's what Bob does too. He just shows up. Not with a grand plan, not with some noble vision, but somehow it works. He becomes the Sentry, the golden hero with the light of 1 million exploding suns. He brings calm to the team's chaos. He makes them feel stronger, more grounded, more real. He seems like the answer. He is the light. But just like Peter, he's still carrying something underneath. Peter's not just impulsive and eager. He's also dangerous in his own way. He wants to follow Jesus to the end, but he keeps putting his foot in his mouth. He keeps making it about him. He draws a sword in the garden and cuts off a man's ear. He says he'll never deny Jesus and then does 3 times. And after the resurrection, he's not at the tomb. He's not rallying the others. He's fishing. He goes back to what he knows, back to the boat, back to the shame. Because sometimes when you fail big enough, you don't just think you're unworthy to lead, you think you're unworthy to belong. And you see that in Bob too. Because eventually the truth comes out. The darkness they've been fighting, the void that spreads shame and despair, it's Bob. The one who showed up quietly, the one who held them together, the one they called Sentry. He's also the one unraveling. He's the reason the team is in danger. He's the threat. And he knows it. That's the most heartbreaking part. He knows he's the void, and he doesn't want to be. But wanting doesn't make it go away. That's what despair does. It tells you that your worst truth is your only truth. That your mistakes are your identity. That the only thing you can bring to the people who love you is harm. And in that moment, Bob isn't just the void. He believes he deserves to be. And maybe that's you too. By the time we were finished with Bible study on Monday, I swear everyone in the circle had said at least once, "Peter is me," or "I am Peter." For some, it was the moment in Luke when he sees the nets overflowing and falls to his knees in shame. "Go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man." For others, it was the moment in Mark when the rooster crows and he realizes what he's done. Breaking down in tears as he confronts his own human weakness. Or maybe it was the fire on the beach in John's Gospel, and the soft voice asking again and again, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" 3 denials, 3 calls to love. No punishment, just tenderness. Peter is all of us. Or maybe more truthfully, Peter is the part of us that keeps showing up even after the worst things we've done. He's impulsive, passionate, broken, brave. He says the wrong thing. He says the true thing. He doesn't always know the difference. But as Katie Suckland said about all of that, Jesus can handle that. And I think that's exactly right. Not only can Jesus handle that, Jesus expects that of us. Jesus maybe even wants that from us. When Peter tells Jesus, "I'm not the guy, I'm too messy," Jesus doesn't argue. He says, "Come anyway. Follow me. From now on, you will be catching people." Or maybe not catching like a trap, but touching like an awakening. The Greek word that's used here is zogreo. It can mean to catch alive or to take but not kill. But it also means to restore life or to revive. You won't be taking people, Peter. You'll be touching them, calling them, awakening them, helping them remember they're still alive. Which is funny, because isn't that what Jesus did for Peter? There's a scene toward the end of the movie. Bob has proven himself to be the Sentry, the source of light and power that can give the team the strength they need to get through. But now He's found himself in the throes of despair, void of all the joy, love, happiness that makes life worth participating in. He's become immersed in his self-imposed feelings of shame and unworthiness, and he's really a drag on the team. Standing in the wreckage of a team who has given all they have to give, looking at Bob, seeing the danger he could become and the beauty he's already shown. One of the team members asks, "What's the plan?" And the response, the line that's been stuck in my head all month: "Stop Val, save Bob." Stop what destroys, save what's human. Even if what's human is dangerous, even if it's broken, even if it's you. Because here's the gospel in superhero terms. You can be both the Sentry and the Void. You can be both Peter the Rock and Peter the Betrayer. You can be worth saving, even when you're the one falling apart. And still, Jesus says, "Feed my sheep. Follow me." I think we imagine the call of discipleship as this grand, shining thing. But it usually shows up in ashes, in regret, in exhaustion, in empty nets. It swims in the same water as all of our addictions and despairs and regrets. There's something deeply wrong in the world we are in the midst of. It's difficult, dark times. Our government has become corrupt by authoritarianism. Unidentified masked men are abducting people off the streets and disappearing them. Elected officials are being arrested for asking questions, and parents are having their ability to make life-saving medical decisions for their children stripped away from them. And we've possibly started a war in Iran. So how are we ever supposed to be disciples in such a time as this? What's the plan? Stop Val, save Bob. Because we all feel it. And the only way to carry it is together. Peter never stops being human, and Jesus never stops calling him. So maybe discipleship doesn't start when we feel ready. Maybe it starts when we finally stop asking if we're worthy and start trusting the one who calls us anyway. If you feel broken, too tired, too tangled in your past, well, you're in good company. Peter's there. The Thunderbolts are there. Bob's there. I'm there. Maybe you are too. But hear this. Love is still calling. Not to trap, not to shame, but to touch, to awaken, to feed, to follow. And you, yes, you, are exactly the right person for the job. May it be so.